When we first got together as a group, we established a creed which was, you know, everybody's ideas are welcome and will be at least tried. There's no judges standing around going, Sean, keep your mouth shut, you're only the drummer, you know? I mean, that's just not gonna happen. And they did the same for me, you know? And a lot of the time in the past, I've been not listened to that much because I'm only the singer, right? And a chick to boot.
This was just blank slate. Let's put everyone in a room, no producer, and just start seeing what happens. It was all just someone would come up with a riff or a random idea or be humming something even, and we'd just see where it would go from there.
We weren't really trying to write songs. We were trying to just come up with little riffs that, like little sound bites, that could potentially spark a little interest in Anne.
I try not to listen technically at first. I try to see how it feels.
Almost all of it was straight to 2-inch tape, and we just decide if songs should be on a click track or not. Most of them weren't.
I've never been in a band that tight. We rehearsed so much and played so much that we became like telepathic.
We would record a bunch of our sketches and let Anne listen to them, and if they resonate with her, we would continue.
I have this ability to hear stories inside of tones, inside of the music that's being played.
There was definitely some sketches where I think as a band, we were like, oh, she's gonna love this one. And we're like, what'd you think of that song, Anne? And she's like, yeah, it's all right. What about this one? And so then we would move into that one, and you know, lo and behold, we have 11 songs.
This band just has so many good ideas, so many musical ideas that are good, that they gave me a list of like 20 different ideas or something, the sketches.
Yeah, even more probably.
And I just like went through them, and I was looking for the idea that just jumps out at you, you know, that almost stands alone. It says, I am a song.
Some of the best moments when you were writing them in the studio while we were working up some kind of sketch, like Tripsitter, where we're working out some part, something, it's starting to feel cool. Someone's like, Anne's got an idea for this. I'm like, oh, right on. And then Anne would write in the back for, you know, that one was what, like 40 minutes or something? She's like, I think I got something. And we're like, okay. Comes in, starts singing, it's just the finished.
Tripsitter is a song that the guys had a very different approach to, and it's more almost psychedelic jazz, and it was a real departure for us. But somehow it works with the rest of the record. It just, all the songs on the record took on this sort of trippiness after Tripsitter.
Paul was just over there banging on his Mando guitar, is that what it's called? And he's like, what about this for an idea? I think it was something like that. I was like, bang, the bang, the bang, 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 the bang. And then I never would have thought that we would have gotten that to where we are now with that song from this guy just banging on his little guitar. Sorry, I don't mean to be demeaning.
Don't be demeaning about my guitar.
It's
It's actually physically little.
Tripsitter was an example of a song that just came out of the blue.
Yeah.
There were no previously written lyrics anywhere.
Yeah.
And
Just Paul on that cool
yeah,
Mando guitar thing, and I was banging on the bike. And then I think Tony came up with the chord progression underneath.
yeah. It's a story of somebody's life, and they finally get to the point where they've been a traveler and they're tired and they're wandering and everything, and they find another door, you know? So life isn't over. We never know what's in there, but it might be some of the songs on the record.
Seek within the mystery.
Such a beautiful invitation, you know, not only to a record, but to life in general.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
This Is Now is a song that we started in Seattle, and it was based off of a mellotron and a guitar riff. And I think the title, This Is Now, I think came from Anne.
This Is Now is one of the few songs that I actually had lyrics written before I heard the music, and it just kind of went together, you know. It's just something my husband always says. That was then, this is now, you know. He hates sitting around listening to people blab about the past. And he said that just enough times so that it stuck in my very soul. And when it came time to write a poem about it, it was right there. And then the guys came across with this really beautiful emotional chord progression that pulls in all these emotional ways.
Lyrically, that's one of the most poignant songs on the record in terms of this moment in history, and it's one of my favorite lyrics.
One of the things I like about this band the most is that they're not afraid to get really emotional. They rock, you know, they have the obligation to let it all go and just rock out. I mean, they got that. But they're not afraid to be sensitive too. And that's what This Is Now is.
That was then, this is now. Life rearranges what you know somehow. Back at ground zero, you take your bow. That was then, and this is now.
The basics of that was the first take with an unfinished ending. Remember that? Let's just on the fly look at each other. Now! And then from there, it changed a little bit. We started adding things and massaging it, and adding all that stuff at the end. And scream.
Yeah! Sean does this, he's famous for doing this scream, this blood curdler that we added to Reign of Hell. In this one moment where the beat drops out and it's just this, like a bomb falling. And then we added Sean's scream into that, and it's just like, whoa, you know.
And I remember our first listen down was pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, you had tears in your eyes.
Yeah, it was heavy.
Well, yeah, the lyrics to that were written out of heartbreak, you know. Reign of Hell, I was extremely tormented by some stuff I had been reading about the Ukraine war and also about the mass shootings in this country. I wrote this poem and I was thinking of an old folk song, like an English folk song, where the wife is waving her lover off to war and she doesn't know if she'll ever see him again. Somebody just going, well, okay, if you come back to me, you will, but the bed's cold. You haven't been lying on your pillow. I don't know where you are. Are you still alive? Is your heart still beating? Or are you lying out there, you know, among the crumbling stuff and the screeching drones and all that? I tried to write it make it be as horrific as possible, and then we put it against this heavy rock, almost riff rock, metal-y type background.
Got the Black Sabbath fans around you pretty excited that day.
My dear son, who's 10 now, my oldest, he's very inquisitive about instruments. So I had found a set of really great old Moog Taurus bass pedals. He was like, these are so cool, Dad, because they sound amazing. Beautiful, sonorous, rich, low end. So Marshall fell in love with the thing. I remember Marshall and Leo came by the studio one night. I played him just a snippet, and Marshall's very creative. He said to me in the car on the way home, he said, Dad, you gotta put those bass pedals on the end of that. I thought, man, that would be really cool. It was his idea. So we brought it in, set it up on the floor, and I said, Marshall, you play it, because it's just, you hit it with your hands and it's 2 notes. And he played it, and not only did it sound cool, it like made the track. And it wasn't even my idea. It was his idea, and he played it. And he was probably 8. I mean, how many 8-year-olds are on a classic artist record? It was cool, man. That was a highlight.
It was really great for me to hear the song take on this great big monstrous shape. Just weighs a ton. Stranger in a Strange Land is autobiographical. I guess you'd say it's a chick song, but you know, it's for anybody who finds themselves in a place where they've never been, they've never felt this before, and they're scared, but they're willing to be bold and jump in, you know.
We tracked the song and then kind of realized half the band liked the song at one tempo and half the band liked the song at another tempo. And we fought about that forever until I ended up having to vary speed the computer to the right tempo, and it was a whole ordeal. But we got there. But it definitely felt like it might die on the floor at one point.
Great story. Sorry, just kidding.
Tom's on piano in that one. And what was coming out of him, to me in that moment, was pretty savantish, that specific.
Totally,
you know what I mean?
totally. And Tom would surprise you like that. Like you would think that he's a guitar guy, you know, and he is, but at the same time, he can just go, wait a minute, I'm thinking about something on the piano here, and then come out with this amazing part that kind of drives the whole song. It's the backbone of the song.
Stranger in a Strange Land was another one where we were working on the song, and Ann was at that little red table in the lounge, just scratching away on a pad. She came in and she's like, I'd like to try it with you guys. And we're like, okay, cool. And we clicked the song off, and when she started singing, it was the finished melody, lyric, performance, everything. And I remember playing and looking over at Tony, and he's like, what is happening? And it was just, the song was done, complete, right there. And you know, usually you get kind of bits and pieces as somebody's working on it, but to have the whole thing just presented at one time was like, wow.
Yeah.
That's
It
incredible.
was a pretty sick moment.
That's a Tony Lucido sketch. Tony's a very high energy guy, and lots of very feisty, very sweet, I must say. He's very protective of me, and I really like him as a person because he's so soft inside, but then he's got this big personality, you know. I think all that's reflected in his bass playing. But Waiting for Magic was just a wild rocker, and we were playing it, and I'd written some wild rocky words to it, and then we got to a point in the middle of the song where nobody knew what to do, and I was just singing, waiting for magic, waiting for magic, waiting for magic, and that kind of became the song. The band submitted a sketch called My Evening Jacket, and I liked it. I thought it's simple and it's powerful, and given the right story, it could be iconic. So I started thinking about it, and I came up with this little story about a nerd like you and me, you know, like most everybody really is deep inside, who opens up the closet door and sees that one garment that just, when you put it on, it just transforms you into somebody else. I mean, all this confidence rushes onto your body just with the jacket, right? It's a short song, but the song grows really fast from the nerd opening the closet door and putting on the jacket to stepping outside the front door and being on the red carpet and the crowd roaring. And who's in charge here? The ruler of the night. You know, it's kind of a funny, almost, you know, cinematic little story, little funny movie thing.
As we were writing it, we were thinking, oh, that we could come out of this section and there would be a cool down section that was kind of maybe open and spacey. And I just think one of the guys went, this would be a perfect spot for Ann to play flute. And everybody just went, yep. It was just, there was not even a question about it. We just went, oh, this is, it just sort of organically happened. There was a spot, almost like we planned for it to be, but we didn't. It was just a cool flute section. And then when she played it, it had the exact tone and the feeling that the song, you know, should have. Obviously, she would know better than anybody.
That's a love song. Except it's a love song for the ages, you know. It isn't a lust song or anything like that. It's love, baby. And just the enduring nature of it. How you can go through all these things together, and ups and downs and rough times and times when you get mad at each other and all that. But then when that blows over, you find you love each other more. I feel so blessed to have that in my life. And I won't lose myself, but I definitely will go a long way to preserve it. We'd been together for about a week, and we went up to Seattle, where my house was, for Thanksgiving. And I had put my family in my house because I was coming with a new boyfriend, and so we stayed in a hotel. It was so romantic, and every day just got sweeter. And finally one day he said, well, I guess we ought to go get a ring. And it kind of took me aback because we'd been together for a week, right? Yeah. And my first response was, well, I don't know, should we just jump like that? And then I shut myself up. And I thought, yeah, we should. At that point, we were 64 years old. Both of us are the same age. And what are we waiting for, you know? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But let's not hang around and wait for things to be perfecto. Let's just get with somebody that you really get off on and you can spend time with, and who's your intellectual equal. And I had a little Mini Cooper at the time, and we got in a Mini and we went down to First Avenue, Seattle, to a pawn shop. Because I was raised in suburbia by middle-class white family, and so at this point I'm just like discarding ideas about the wedding and like how you're supposed to do a wedding. I was just throwing them out the window as we drove, and we went into the pawn shop, and I found this, at that point I don't think I knew how serious it was. So I found the cheapest one I could, and it was just like a silver band, and I put that on, and it was just magical. It's a beautiful thing. It still is a beautiful relationship, still blooming, still growing.
Well, no wonder the title Still.
Yeah. Rusty Robots, I think that was the name of a sketch that they came up with and named it Rusty Robots. And so I thought how cool it would be to just really get into that story of Rusty Robots out in the rain. Old digital equipment that's out of use now, and it's all rusty on the porch. And
That song's so cool.
yeah. And Sean plays this completely crazy, insane solo, drum solo.
It's insane.
In Rusty Robots.
It's the person who doesn't know how to play a drum solo playing a drum solo.
It was in 6, and then it was in 2, and it was all over the place, and crazy cool, I thought. So I wrote this little story about taking a walk in the rain home and saying to the rain shower, God, would you knock it off? I'm too cold, you know, I'm all wet and I'm too cold. Can you just back off? And then the rain shower says, no, I can't back off. You know, this water is gonna set you free now. Settle down, sit down and enjoy it, you know. So the guys, when we went to cut it, they had this section in the middle that's just, everything just goes nuts. It's crazy and feedback and weird electronics out of control, you know, to try and emulate what it would sound like with a bunch of rusty robots and digital stuff in the rain, you know, out there just getting wrecked.
When Tom left, there were songs that were unfinished, and to watch him step into the role of not just finishing the parts, but actually becoming a part of the band and having his voice in there, playing the way that only he can play, was such a gratifying, rewarding thing of like, okay, we're a band again, let's go.
What informed your solo on Rusty Robots?
You know what Ann did? I went out there to play the solo. I cut a pass or two, and Paul came over the talkback and he said, that's cool, but we want to do one wilder, because Ann wants to hear you do one wilder. So I just sort of off the top of my head just ripped this sort of one that I felt like was a little edgier and wild at what they were looking for. And as soon as I did it, they said, all right, come on in, because apparently Ann just turned her head and said something like, ooh, that's it. So I just went as far as she wanted me to go.
The solo alone to Rusty Robots is like, all right, Ryan's on this record now. I'm so terrible with titles. What if we party?
What if?
What?
It's called What If, yeah.
What if, yeah. That's around. I was experimenting with writing a song that had circular words. I wrote like 4 short verses and just circled them. It sails along and it's these beautiful chords and these words about self-liberation. You can just, the house is wide open, you can just take off if you want. You're free, you know, just go. And just do what you want, you know. And that one almost didn't make it. We sweated over that one. And then once Tom left, I wouldn't say he was holding it back, but he had different ideas about that song, so we kind of shelved it. And then after he left, we took it out again and kind of tweaked it our way, and it worked great.
What was the tweak there, if you can remember?
We took out all the parts where it slowed down and stopped and got pensive. We just let it ring all the way through with these gorgeous crystalline guitars, you know.
The song What If definitely was a song that we worked on and overcooked to the point where everybody kind of lost interest in it and it didn't feel like it was going to work. And then we came in with Ryan and just started from ground zero and tracked the song before lunch. And it was one live take, no click, no nothing. Whereas the version that we have been working on before was just highly punched in, overthought. And this was just exactly what the song needed to be. We just needed to go back to the basics of the song.
Little Things. It's a song I started a long time ago, probably about 2016. And it's about It could be about somebody who's had a back alley abortion. It could be about somebody who has an addiction and who ODs and is lying in an alleyway. Somebody who's really down on their luck. Somebody comes and picks them up, takes them to the hospital. They wake up in the hospital and they have a conversation with the nurse who tells them, you know, really don't listen to anybody. It's the little things that you gotta do for yourself to keep your life in grace, you know. Musically, it's one of my favorites on the record because it develops itself. It's not as much a project. It's
Little Things was an evolution lyrically that was fun to watch. Anne's process, where she started and where it ended up, it's so good. It's just, you know, story. It's a great story.
A car pulls up and loads me in. Somebody talking, somebody praying. I'm bleeding and I'm fading.
It had that, like the final scene feel right away. I actually had it in my head while we were working on other stuff. You know, like, oh, we have that, because it was easy to think of it as like a bookend, but it had to be last.
That sketch came from Tom and from an idea that he was working with on his homeschooling YouTube show. And he came in one day with this idea and he played it for us and he said, people have been commenting on this in my YouTube show. And I heard it the first time and I went, oh God, that's making me cry, just like without any words or anything. And then they were jamming on it and making a thing out of it. And I was sitting out in the other part of the studio with my notebook, listening. And I kept hearing a phrase. They were doing a musical phrase that was one and only. That's all I can say. But that's what I heard in their phrase. And so pretty much I conquered my fear of egotism and I said, well, why not just say Miss One and Only and have it be me, you know? Because we're talking about again, about a relationship where one person is far away and the other one is dreaming about them in their absence. Sitting on the porch, drinking bourbon, and wondering where that person is. It's pretty pure and blue, and it's Tom all over. It's just Tom all over. I came a couple of years ago to the theory of you just write everything and then you go back and you get rid of the bad stuff and you will see the good stuff. It'll just jump out, you know.
Without question, Anne is at the absolute top of the heap of a very, very short list of coolest people I've ever worked with.
One of the coolest people I've ever worked for, one of the coolest people I've ever hung out with, and then she has that voice and that creativity.
When I look over all of the songs, I feel like everybody's personalities are 100% represented, like the whole record. It's like we actually made this. It would not be the same record without any one of those people not being there.
I really cherish all the songs we wrote together, and I hope this record does amazing. I'm sure it will. Because a lot of love went into it, right?
I hope they hear how awesome it is the way I hear how awesome it is. I came in listening to 8 songs that are already done by hearing their greatness, stuff that Tom did. I'm listening as a fan of them and him, and of course. And I feel like I'm the first fan that got to hear stuff.
I always said she's just like a hippie girl that just wants to get lost in music. That's when I see her like really light up. is when she just lets herself go and just lets her, and she's got a very pure connection to music, and I really respect that.
She has done this for so long and she's accomplished so much, and she's still striving to do more.
So this is the studio notebook that was used there at the Smoakstack studio.
Yep. And it has my handwritten lyrics inside to pretty much all the songs on the record. Oops.
She just about burned it all.
I know. Oops, sorry. Sorry.